Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Our Kids Play Hockey. We want to let you know that we have once again been honored with a nomination for the Hockey Podcast of the Year via the Sports Podcasting Awards. And all you need to do to help us is go to ourkidsplayhockey.com and click on the Vote Now button. It asks you a couple questions. You're in and you're out, and you have voted for us for Hockey Podcast of the Year. I want to thank you all for being a wonderful, wonderful audience and helping us get to this stature of hockey podcasting, because we've done it as a family, as the hockey friends and families around the world. Thanks so much and enjoy this episode of Our Kids Play Hockey. What's up, everybody? It's Lee. Welcome to another edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Today, we're evaluating evaluations. We're talking about tryouts, as I'll say again in the open in just a few minutes. It's that time of the year, depending on when you're listening to this, where, your kids' evaluations, your kids' tryouts are coming up, and we wanted to do an episode about it. It's a lengthy one, but we had a lot to say kind of all over the place with this one. It's a sensitive topic, and there's a lot to go over from the views of a parent, from the views as a coach, from the views as a player, and just even how evaluations are run. So this is an episode that'll probably calm you down, or at least give you some insight into how to look at this moving forward. So check it out. Also, if you haven't done so already, check out Christy and I's new children's book, When Hockey Stops. You can get it at whenhockeystops.com right now for early access before its full release on March 29th. If you get it early, you get some free gifts. You get immediate shipping and you get the book signed. So check it out. If you want to support us, that's a great way to do it. But with that said, without further ado, check out this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. It's starting right now. Here we go. Hello, hockey friends and families around the world, and welcome to another edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Today's topic is a serious one. We're going to be evaluating evaluations. We're going to be talking about tryouts. How many letter monogram things can I make here? Listen, it's that time of the year when this episode's coming out. Evaluations and tryouts are coming up for everybody. The stress is on. Everything's happening. And I was sitting down the other day. I was like, we got to do an episode on this. We've kind of alluded to it in the past, or we've talked about it in conversation. We've never done an actual episode about end of year evaluations and looking towards hockey next year. So with that said, I'm going to bring in, as you can see him on the screen if you're watching this, my favorite people in the world, Mike Benelli and Christy Casciano Burns, to talk about this. And again, I haven't done this in a while, just to reset, because we have a lot of new listeners. Christy's kids have played hockey their whole lives. Her daughter is a Division I hockey player right now. Her son has since graduated. Mike's kids both play hockey. They're in that kind of middle hockey journey, right, Mike, in that peewee kind of area. And my kid just started his hockey jersey. He is just finishing his first year of Mite. So for the listening audience, you have parents who have been through all of it, around and up and down. And Mike and I are coaches, and Christy is an anchor, and we're just in the space, right? That's why these conversations are so great. But let me throw it to you first, Christy, because in your book, which the show is based off of, My Kids Play Hockey, you did a whole thing about this. So I want to jump to you before Mike and I lose our minds.
Let's set the stage. Nothing can unravel the coolest hockey parent faster than a hockey tryout. This is a really weird time. And Lee, you're starting to observe that now, aren't you?
I am. Yeah.
Things are getting weird. The season is ended and parents are getting a little nutty.
A lot of whispers, a lot of conversation, not throwing anybody out with that. Just you can feel it. You know what I mean?
Feel it. You absolutely feel it. I do have a lot of tips for parents on how to keep your cool. We'll go over those in a moment, but let's just talk about the kids first. This is a very stressful time for them as well. They're anxious. They want to impress the coach. They want to make the team. So they got a lot riding on this. So it's really important for you as a parent to be supportive. But there are some things that you can tell your kid when they're going for tryouts. One of the big things, I always told my kids, character is really important as well as your skill. So you want to be the good team player out there when you're trying to. You don't want to be that hot dog, I know you want to show your skills off, but it's also important to show that you can work with other kids as well. They got to move their feet. They need to hustle. They need to be at their best. Check their equipment before you bring a tryout, before you go to a tryout. So oftentimes you don't realize at the end of the season, either how much your kids have grown or how worn out a piece of equipment might be. They really need to have, be working on all cylinders, and equipment is a very important part of that. So check them from head to toe, make sure everything feels right, and then it's going to work right out on the ice. And then to impress the coach, energy. They need to have energy. They need to be at their best. So make sure you fuel them up right before they hit the ice as well. And I'm curious, Mike, have you actually been a part of evaluations, or do you leave that to someone else? Do you evaluate kids during tryouts? Is that part of what you do?
Yeah. So for about 35 years now, probably have had every single year of tryouts, evaluations, pre-evaluation camp, pre-camp for evaluation camp, pre-ID skates to identify the kids we want to invite to evaluation camp.
All right, so you're a great
It's-
resource here.
It's absolutely gotten it's so depressing to see where it's gone from an evaluation team tryout placement, because I think we can get to this in depth, but there's so many different levels
Yeah.
of tryouts, right? There's the elite teams that have tryouts that have already had their tryouts, basically because they've already contacted all the kids they're going to take anyway. So all you're doing is really funding. I mean, I remember I had a program back in the 90s where we really only had tryouts to fund the coaching staff for the next year. So the money we got from the tryouts was really only there so we could fund the coaches that were already going to coach the team that was basically picked. I mean, you're not coming out of, it's not like you're being dropped out of a helicopter and nobody's seen you before, depending on what region you're in. So I'm a little sour on tryouts on that perspective, because I just don't think if parents really looked at them and studied them, I just think they become invalid in most places, because kids really don't get a real shot at it. They don't. And I think the people that try to get evaluators outside of their organization and say, oh, we're just going to have outside evaluators, so there's no political influence, it's all BS anyway too, because it just, for the 95% of that, it's just not true. So I think it goes right back to everything we say about organizations and programs, and, buyer beware, go study. And then probably what Lee's experiencing now a little bit is the fact is the rose-colored glasses of who your kid is. And, oh, no, that's everybody else's kid, not my kid, though. My kid needs to get out into a different program because he's being asked to go try out this other select team. And, I don't know. I think if people want to be truthful and people really want to open up the evaluation process, at the youth level, I'm not talking about juniors and high school and, real tryouts, right? Where you show up and everybody has, ideally, right, everybody would have a white helmet, a white or blue jersey with a number on the back, and indescript programming of who they are or where they came from. And I think that could be a model that would work. But, everybody comes to tryouts and they have their, their 7, all the organizations have their stickers on their helmets and their socks and their breezers, and everyone knows who the kids are. So, I mean, to me, I just think there's so many better ways to do it. And that's what I do with other programs. I help to evaluate them and how they and how they conduct their evaluations. So in short, I think tryouts are a bunch of crap most of the time. So,
but they exist.
But that's just me. That's just me.
Right. But they're part of hockey. And
they
are
are
sports. Let's not just rip on our own. They're part of
all
sports.
sports. I get it. Yep,
yeah, it's definitely not just hockey. Yeah.
So let's talk about what our kids can do to be their best. You would agree, move your feet, have energy, show up with a positive attitude.
Yeah, I think that relies on the parents. So look, let me make it clear for the audience where I'm at, because I'm in a little bit of a unique situation this year where it's very relaxed for me. And I'll tell you why. My kid's going to his second year Mike. And I don't have an expectation on what team he's going to make, right? And it's funny, I listen to the show sometimes called Our Kids Play Hockey. And what I remember, I'm being serious, like one of the episodes we recorded, you guys both told me you got to be at the development level that's appropriate. You got to find the coach and the team that's appropriate. And I'm confident that my son's going to be able to do that. I'm not interested in him making the top team. If he does, that's great. But I'm interested in him making the right team. And as a second year Mike, there's a little pressure off. I'm not going up a level. It's not a huge jump. Going to squirt's stressful, right? I can see how that'd be very stressful for parents. It's full ice full ice, 5 players on the ice at a time, offsides. Like, it's a different game. So sure. I'm in a little more of a relaxed scenario. I'll admit that. But even going into his first year of Mike out of Adams, which is a little bit of a jump, I got to be honest with you guys, my attitude with him going into evaluation, I let him know it's an evaluation, but I said, just go ahead and have fun out there at this age. Just go out there and enjoy it. I do tell him, Christy, I said, like, you got to skate hard. You can't, this isn't a practice, right? This is
Right.
more like a game, a mentality. You really got to work hard. But I don't want him thinking, and parents, I really mean this. You got to be careful with this. And everyone listening is going to say, well, I don't do that. And I don't think anyone intends to do this, but I know it happens. All right. I just don't want my kid thinking that the result of an evaluation or a tryout is how I'm going to value him or her afterwards. I don't want my kid to ever worry that if he doesn't make a triple A team, that he let me down. That thought is more devastating to me than him not making the team. All right. Now, with that said, the other side of this, and now I'm kind of talking as a player, I've been cut or dropped off teams I thought I should have been on. I was devastated as a player, but you know what? My dad was there for me and he was hurting too. I remember him telling me, like, yeah, you hurt, I hurt. And it wasn't easy, but man, that's a much better scenario than him being upset or me thinking that he was upset. And like most things, it ended up being the best thing ever, right? The team I ended up on was my greatest developmental year ever, right? So I'm rambling a little bit, but the point I'm trying to make is this: my attitude for evals, and it was the same last year. I actually feel very confident saying that, was just, son, I love you no matter what happens out there. This is not a practice. You have to work hard, skate hard, do your best. That's what I want you to come away from this, is just, you can say to me that you did the best you could. I'm gonna love you no matter what, and have fun out there. Like, hockey's supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be extremely stressful. And these events are extremely stressful. All right. And there is a good life lesson there for the kids. You're going to deal with this stress a lot. But as a parent, and this is where I'll throw it back to you, as a parent, I don't want to add on any more stress that's already there. It's already there. I don't want to add on more, because here's the truth. My kid's going to wake up the night. We're going to be fine no matter what happens. So I just don't want to add any more stress on my kids. And that's if they're changing organizations, staying in the same organization, going up a level. Just want them to know I love them, and that just do your best, skate hard, have as much fun as you can in these situations. That's where my head goes.
Right. Yeah. You don't want to give them that double dose of anxiety, because they're already going to be disappointed if they don't make the team. And the last thing they want to do is also know that they're going to disappoint you. So, and I'll refer to a case, personal case. Sophia was trying out for this, elite team. Chance, she wasn't really ready for it, but she wanted to try, and she got cut. She didn't make the team, and it ended up being the best thing that could possibly have ever happened to her, because chances are she would have sat on the bench a lot with that team. So we found another team that she was actually the star player, and she really grew as a person, as a hockey player. She ended up being captain of the team, and she was so creative. She was they moved her she was playing defense.
Right.
They moved her into a position of a center, which she never played before. And she was so good. And she led the team to some championship wins, became
awesome.
Captain, and did some shots that were super crazy creative that she never would have been able to do had she been on that very elite
You never
team.
know what's going to happen.
And so it was a silver lining. We didn't see it at the time, but it ended up being a real blessing. And, now she's playing college hockey. So, maybe that little setback in her lit the fire.
Is setback even the right word? Is setback, like, here's the deal, is that, like I said, sometimes in sport, this is like a life thing. It's not even just a sport thing.
Yeah.
You need to have that confidence. You need to be on the team where you're one of the better players, right? And you have to lead, and you have to be a good teammate in that scenario. One of my favorite years playing, I remember this, was that I was one of the better players on a team, and I didn't make the highest team, but I gained so much confidence in that season. I look back and like, I really needed that year. I really needed to feel that, you know what I mean? To get me to the next level.
Right.
We talked about this on previous episodes. If you're running your kid to make the top team every year, every single year till they're 18, burnout's going to happen. We in our last interview, we were talking to a man who said it. He's like, my kid turned 18, was getting college offers, he was burnt, didn't want to play anymore. Like, why would they're 18? Why would they want to deal with that stress forever? Anyway, Mike, let's throw it back to you too, because Christy, I think you're right. Like, look, the other lesson of evaluations, and I want to keep this positive too, because we got to talk about evaluations in general, but the other lesson of it is, like, these are life lessons. You have to make the opportunities for yourself, no matter what happens, whether you make the team or not. It's a life lesson. It's one moment in time. It's what you do, how you react to the situation. Again, whether you make the top team or you drop the team, how you react to that is what makes you who you are, right? I remember when I was a peewee, I remember a kid screaming, and I mean screaming in front of everyone at the head coach of the team he didn't make, that I hate you and you ruined my life. Right. And I can tell you, I played with that kid. He kind of had a bad attitude all year. Right. And the whole season was, shouldn't be on this team. I shouldn't be on this team. You are on this team. You could have an impact on this team. And you didn't, because you're so worried about where you should have been. That was, to me, that was the wrong messaging. Right.
Yeah. Right.
Anyway,
Exactly.
Mike, let's go back to you and we'll talk more about like the positives, because there are some positives in evaluations. You get to see where
Come
you're at.
on, Mike.
You know,
Let's share a little positivity here.
yeah, Mike.
Negative.
We're throwing it
Nelly.
to you, Mike, for positivity.
I think there is. I think it is. No, there's no doubt that evaluations and tryouts and the opportunity for your son or daughter to be evaluated is great and
Right.
compete against other kids on the ice. No doubt about it. That's sport. That's what we want to do. We want to compete. That's how I believe. I believe that we shouldn't take down the barriers for our kids. We should make them break through barriers, right? And compete. But
There
what
you
I'm
go.
saying
There
is
you
just be careful as a parent that you're staking what somebody thinks about your kid. That's some stupid accountant that sits in a room all day and has
Right.
never even seen a hockey practice before. That's who's evaluating your kid. You know what I mean? Not a professional hockey coach and not a professional evaluator. And I think the fact is, if professional evaluators could even evaluate 6, 7, and 8-year-olds, we'd all have better jobs, because every pro team would have an evaluator in these little tiny rinks looking at 6-year-olds. You can't. So I think the way I think the best way to do it, me personally, is just don't feel like your kid has to be challenged at 8, 9, 10, 11 years old to try to make the best team. Just go right back to what we say all the time. Just try to make the best fit.
Right.
And if the best
So
fit
important.
is, because I know we all say we listen to our kids, but the bottom line is just like, oh, but you could make that team. But all my friends are on this team. No, I know, but your friends suck. They don't know what it takes to get better. Like you need to get, they don't take it as seriously as you do. Like, I don't know. I like them. We're so fat. Listen, it's in the news today, right? This morning, Division I college athlete, everything going for her.
Yep.
The top of the world in the sport, and feels she's worthless, right? So and then we're doing the same thing with 6-year-olds that can't even manage that stress and manage those emotions.
Well, we're not present. We're not present. I'm going to say this, but little psychology here. Okay. We're often focused on the future and the past. We're often not focused on the present moment and what we can control. And it's something we got to change. And this is a mental fitness discussion quickly now, right? I've always said you can only focus on what you control. I wanted to turn this, because I bet you the parents listening to this, like, well, what should I do? Like, what are the action items for me as a parent and for my kid going to an evaluation? All right. Aside from the physical stuff, we can get into that. All right. And the physical stuff, eating right, sleeping well, like that does matter. Right. But we all know it. All right. Yeah. Don't give your kid Frosted Flakes before the tryout. Okay. Have a good chicken dinner the night before. But the mental side of it is this. Look, and I'm going to pose it like this. You'll like this, Christy. It's, what are the coaches looking for? What are the evaluators looking for? Before I give you the answer to that, it's so important you let your kid understand that the only thing your kid controls is him or herself at this tryout and their effort level. That's the only thing they can control. So just give your best effort. That's the message you want to give the kids. It's all you can control. You cannot control the politics. You cannot control the pre-picked teams. You can just control what you do. If you only focus on yourself, kids I'm talking about, and parents too, if you only focus on yourself, you're going to get the best result. If you focus on your opponent too much, I promise you will not get the best result. It's not how it works. The same thing in games. When I coach hockey teams, I don't worry about the other team. I worry about my team and maybe the tactics to beat the other team, but I keep the focus on us. I'm not worried about them. All right. Now, what are coaches looking for? Look, good chance when you walk into an evaluation, really at any level, a majority of the kids have already been pre-selected in the evaluator of the coach's head. Okay. So know that. All right. Don't fight that. Know that. Right. Most of the team is probably picked already, unless you're in a brand new organization. Nobody knows. All right. That's the first thing. So what do I do now if you don't know where your kid's going to lie? Go right back to what I said. If they really want to stand out, focus on themselves, do the best they can. Right. Again, I've said this before. I was actually surprised at the team my kid made this year. It's not a brag, but I noticed at the tryout last year, the evaluation last year, he was playing great. And I asked him afterwards, like, what did you do? I just went out there and had fun. He didn't have any of the stress, and I could tell. All right. I'm not patting myself on the back at all. I was surprised he played that well. Right. And it didn't always come through in the season that way. So what I'm saying again is focus on what you control. Don't worry about the future. The future is, what team am I going to make? It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant at the evaluation. All right. And don't worry about last season. Stay present, stay focused, only focus on what you can control. That is the best scenario for your kid and you, parents, because I know you feel the stress in the stands or wherever you are. All right. I know you feel that anxiety of, oh, I just want my kid to do well. All right. And here's the thing. Last thing I'll say on this before I throw it back to you. Let's say your kid has a horrible evaluation, just sucks, right? Whatever. They just didn't do well. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. All right. It happens. You hear these stories about the NHL, Mike and Christy, where guy shows up 5 seconds late to his first NHL training camp. They put him right on the AHL team. They don't even wait. Doesn't matter how good he is. Life lesson. And you know what? You know what that player said? I remember it because I saw the interview. He was like, I screwed up and I got to take accountability for that. I'm going to have to spend a year in the minors. Right. That's the way it is. Right. So just careful, parents, take a deep breath. You know, I know it's tough because you're there with the other parents and everybody's kind of like, it's me. It's not you versus the other parents.
Right.
Right. It's not your kid versus the other kid. At least not in the traditional sense. Right. It's a moment to shine. It's a moment to be present. It's a moment to do the best you can to raise that human experience. I don't care if this sounds wishy-washy to you. That's the key. And even at AAA, all right, even if you don't think it's fair, you can't control anything else. It's a waste of your time to have that much anxiety. All right. And easier said than done. I will say that.
Yeah. And even in college hockey, in my daughter's case, any of the players, if they're late for practice, you don't play in playoffs or you're going to miss shifts. Right. That's just the way it is. So learn that lesson early, kids.
Yeah.
You got to be on time. You got to be responsible. And as Lee said, there's only one thing you can control. That's your actions and your behavior. You can control that. So if you're going out for a team, kind of like a job interview, it is your job to make the team. That's your job.
Yeah,
so you have to do your very best.
Yeah.
You know,
and you might not get it. You might not get the job.
Right. I think going back to the lessons, right? That if you have a player that's a 12U or above, you know, a little bit, you know, it's carrying their own bag into the rink and able, you know, and they go in for check-in, like have them check in. Right. Like, hey, my name's Michael Benelli. I'm checking in for the 12U team. Nice to meet you. What's your name? Like teach them, like if the old adage like that, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. If you're coming in new, then you've got to make a great impression. If you're coming in old, if you're a player that's been there before, it's your chance to kind of reinvent yourself a little bit, because it's so hard for organizations to cut current kids. Like none of us want to cut a player. Right. I can tell you that right now. Like the goal of 90% of tryouts is not to say, okay, how do I get rid of all these kids on my team? That's not the goal.
Are you sure, Mike? Are you sure?
Well, no, I think it is. I think it is a goal for a lot of organizations. Trust me. And I wish I could name them right now, because I would love to call them out. If it didn't affect me personally, I'd be like, I know it's all what you're doing is disgusting. And how you treat people, like when you so I'll give you an example. If you're a parent that got a call about, let's say you're a goalie, and you got a call that your kid was going to be like, we want him for our Bantam team. We think he'd be great. And there's 2 goalies on the team already, right? Mm. Don't think that those goalies didn't hear the same thing last year, because they did. And don't think, oh, this guy wants me. This guy's really recruiting me. I'm like, yeah, well, the goalies that didn't fulfill what he needed to. So when I look at tryouts and evaluations differently, like I just don't think teams should be allowed to cut players after they've committed to them before they've developed them. Like in that the youth hockey world, the youth hockey sports world is all about churning new kids in and taking bad coaches that can't develop and giving them the opportunity to always just recruit the kids that somebody else developed. So it's a really bad system. And I think we always go back to
It's dog eats dog. Yeah.
the communities that do it well, right? We look at like the European model where no one gets cut until 14 years old. Like the teams don't even get, like, it's just, there's not even a statistic. So you wouldn't even know if your kid was better or not. So and again, there's debates on all ends of it. I realize that. But I think the biggest thing is you go into a tryout, your kid has carrying their own bag. They have their own stick. They got 2 sticks ready to go. They're taped up. Like me personally, if I was coming new into an organization, I probably wouldn't flaunt the old organization.
Right.
I kind of like dress down, like, you know, if you have a plain jersey to wear, or you could take the stickers off your helmet. And because most of the time, if you're going from because everybody knows you, right? Oh, that kid. Yeah. He's over here trying out because they don't want him over there.
Mike, I want to tap on something.
If you want somebody
You could
else's
be
badges
marked,
there,
and they know that.
I want to
Yeah.
tap on something you just said. And it's funny because this totally is right. Might be parents out there. Let's just say you are the parent of a kid switching organizations. Well, how does my kid stand out? Right. And yeah, there's parents like wear your bright jersey, wear the gold helmet. This is how you stand out. And I'm telling you this as a coach. I'm not just saying this as a parent now. You go up to every coach, every administrator on the ice, off the ice. Hi, my name is Lee Elias. I'm trying out for the team. I just want you to know, I really appreciate being here today. Thank you for having me out. That is how you stand out. I tell this to college students all the time. You want to know a really easy way? Parents, you can use this too. You can use this with your high school students. Easy way to guarantee a kid's going to pass a class. Go introduce yourself the first day of class and sit near the front row.
Right.
Statistics
So
show it's like
simple.
100% chance you're going to pass the class just because you did that. Now you might not get an A. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but see, if you're doing that,
yeah.
then you've already been coached well enough to do
Right.
that, right?
I
So
agree.
it's the piece of saying, hey, oh wow, this number, I love this number. Don't be like,
Right.
oh crap,
That's
you
not
gave me
my number.
You gave me 13 blue. This is the worst number. Can I get another? You know, just take the penny, go in
Yeah.
the locker room. And the nice thing, and actually, Del Belfry mentioned this too, which he did with his daughter, which I really loved. I stole from him a couple of years ago. That you go in and have your kid make sure they introduce themselves to all the kids in the locker room, because most likely one of those kids in the locker room is the coach's kid. And you just go in there and you introduce yourself. Hey, I'm here. My name is Michael, blah, blah, blah. Here's what I'm doing. This is what I want to do. And I'm telling you right now, when the kids are in the room, they advocate for other kids. You see it all the time.
The coaches
You see
ask, hey, who'd you like out there?
Who'd you like out there? Or the kids will say, wow, this kid, where'd he come from? He's really cool.
Right.
You know, he's really nice. Or because that's what kids think.
Well,
They don't- they
Mike,
don't-
here's what I'm gonna say. You're right. Look, listen, I have to kind of preface this too. You're absolutely right. But also, parents, do it because it's the right thing to do. Right. And Mike,
Well,
you
it
are
is the
saying
right
that.
thing to do.
Yeah,
What I'm saying
we're
is,
kind of
that's
going
just the
down
right
that
thing
lane.
to do.
I just want people to know, like it's the right thing to do to have your kid introduce himself. Mike, this is
It's
exactly
not a
what you're
sneaky
saying.
way to, it's
Yeah.
not a sneaky way to get in.
Yeah.
It's just what you should teach your kids
Right.
anytime they come to a new team.
You got to do this stuff whether or not they make the team. That was the other thing I was going to
Right.
say. Like, you could be the worst kid out there, seriously, skill wise.
Right.
You should still be doing this. All right, just because it's the right thing to do. 2, a teacher's responsibility. 3, it's a way to show people that's how you stand out. It's a character thing.
Right. And I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because the focus is so much on skill
Right.
that parents forget the simple thing about manners and being positive and being polite and being that good team player count just as much as skill, especially if your kid's on the bubble. You know, if it's between your kid and another kid, you're dead even. The coach sees something special about your
Yeah.
kid because of the way they're reacting with other players, the way they responded to you, how he introduced himself or herself as soon as she got to the registration table and did it herself. That's all going to bode well for your kid. And don't think it doesn't go noticed either, just
No,
as much as
And it
skill.
means more and more the older level you get,
Yeah.
because your baggage is being dragged around with you. So when
Yeah.
you're a 14U, a 16U, a 17U player, everyone knows you. The hockey world, we were just at a tournament this past weekend, and everyone in the lobby knew each other from
Yep.
7 different teams, from
Mhm.
7 different regions, like all over the country, like basically everywhere, because the world gets tiny in hockey. And I think that's where you need to be, I don't know if we're going in chronological order here, but it's the same idea. Like when you go and get cut from a team, like be the first one to say, hey, we really appreciate the opportunity to try out for your
Right.
team. I really had the great experience. I can't wait to prove you wrong, or I can't wait to get an opportunity, to play at this level. And let me tell you something, when the 7 kids that they thought they were picking say, no, we hate your team anyway, we just came here for a BS tryout, we're not even coming here. All of a sudden they start going down the list going, oh, who's left, or who now can we grab? And it's the kid that probably stood out that said, oh, well, you know what? This kid actually wants to play here. Like, that's what I look for in a team. I look for players that actually want to play for me, not be like,
Right.
oh, I'm just coming to try out because I'm trying out. Well, do you want to play here? Well, I'm only going to play here if this kid makes the team.
That's ridiculous.
well-
And don't think that doesn't happen either.
It
That
happens.
Don't think it doesn't happen. That's all it happens. That's
Right.
That's the
And
whole process.
I'm so glad you're sharing this, especially parents who, this is all new to them. This whole world and it's kind of cutthroat out there.
Well, it is
true.
depressing to sound depressed, but
Yeah.
but what I'm saying is it's true.
It's reality.
And it doesn't have to be, but I think we all have to understand tiers. Like, there's this whole other world outside of AAA travel hockey, that you go to the rink and you're with your community, you have fun, you go out for pizza and you go home, and the parents are like, that was cool. I really had a great
Thanks for the
experience. My kids
babysitting,
had a
yeah.
great experience. Like, there is a world out there like that. It's
Right.
there. You don't always have to, because you can skate around a cone, think that you need to go play on a travel hockey team or some kind of select program. You don't at any level. We talked to a gentleman last week that had a kid that played house league all the way until he was 13 years old. And he was their best junior player that they had in the history of the program. So just love coming to the rink. Your kids have to love coming. And in the evaluation process, if I'm a coach, I want to see that love, because that's a kid I can work with. If I see that positive, exuding kid that's confident, that loves being in the rink, I want that kid on my team, because now I can teach that kid something.
Yeah. And
Said.
Mike, I just wish every coach looked at it like that, and every parent looked at it like that, because look, again, another kind of just reality dose. Then I'm going to try and keep this episode more positive. We're kind of talking about the negatives of evaluations, but we have a lot to say. Like, look, if your kid's a great hockey player or a great athlete, they'll know. Parents, I got to be honest with you. And as a lot of you are going to think I'm wrong, and that's okay. But if you think that the sole success strategy is you having a political edge in the organization you're coaching for your kid to make it as far as they want to make it, I can't sit here and tell you that doesn't play into it at all. I can't lie about that. If you're well connected, you can do things, but that's not the path for success. That's a path for manipulated success. Your kids got to want it. They got to be a good athlete. And if this is what I think about too, guys, again, I'm in such a unique position, having played and done what I've done and kind of being on this show, but I just want my kid to learn the really, really strong life lessons, right? Because I always say, if I coach well, if we do a good job coaching a team, I don't have to coach that much at the end of the season. I always say that, right? It's true. Right? Teams that have won, I don't have to do much coaching. It's just very small corrections, and really more I'm assisting the team more than I'm coaching. I kind of feel that way about my kids. Like, I'm hoping, and you guys can tell me if I'm like out of my mind here, but I'm hoping by the time they're 15 to 18, with all the things that happen when you're 15 to 18, that we've done a good enough job as parents that maybe they will be able to do it on their own a bit, and that I can just be there for small corrections. And the other thing is this, I bet, and I know this, I'm sure there's people out there, and you guys can confirm this. Oh, well, you don't understand, when they're that age, you're going to have so much anxiety. You're going to have so much want and their dreams and hope. I believe that, but I don't want to project that.
Right.
All right. And that's where my mind goes. All right. I don't want to project my fears and anxiety on my kid. I can tell you right now, like, here, I'll be super vulnerable for a minute. I hate the first day of school. I hate it. All right, I have massive separation anxiety with my kids only on the first day. It's fine. Like, after a couple of days, I'm just fine. Right. But here's the thing, that comes from my own childhood, because I had that with my mother and my father when I was young. Now, here's the thing. My kids jump out of the car on the first day. They're fine. And I realize this is my problem, not their problem. And if I get too crazy about it, it's going to become their problem. They're going to get anxious because I'm projecting it. So I do a really good job of hiding it. Or what I've done is I tell my wife, guess what you get to do today? You're going to drop the kids off on the first day of school, because I don't want to project it. We project so much on our kids. All right. Out of love. But by the way, like this is not anybody's a bad parent. Okay. You don't want your kids to hurt. You want your kids to have every advantage. I do too. Okay. But my attitude with advantage, and again, I want you guys to tell me if I'm crazy, is I want them to have the skills needed in life to be able to conquer life to the best of their ability. Hockey will play a huge role in that probably for my kids. Okay. It has for me. If it's not hockey, that's okay too. It's the life lessons. All right. Maybe the question is, well, what happens if your son shows unbelievable talent and skill? Then I will find the program that's going to cultivate that talent and skill. It's not going to define who he is for me. I refuse to do that. I have seen estranged elite athletes who hate their parents for pushing them so hard. It's not worth it to me. All right. Again, I'll let you guys talk because I got to say it one more time, guys. This is my opinion for the audience listening. If you don't agree with me, that is absolutely fine. I respect that. All right, that's just how I approach it.
I agree with you, Lee. I agree with you. You're 100% right.
Yeah, I was kidding. I appreciate that.
The one thing I always, when we talk about character for kids, we've always, my husband and I have always told our kids this, that do the right thing even when you know what no one is watching.
Absolutely.
It's so important.
Right.
I thought we could dive a little bit into the anxiety that parents feel. And I
Please,
do address this in the book, My Kids Play Hockey. And I turned it over to a goalie mom. She's a great writer, Sharon Eng, and she listed some bullet points, some things for parents to keep in mind. I just want to, I want to share them with you because she's spot on here. So she goes on to say just some tips that she swears by. Number one, don't watch your player too closely. There's nothing worse than having your nose pressed up against the glass, analyzing every move, seeing every mistake up close and personal. And yes, that goes for goalie parents especially. Yeah, let's talk about that.
That's a great point.
You do stop with watching every move of your kid during tryouts and having the clipboard out and you did this right, you did this wrong. Relax, stop. Would you agree?
Yeah, don't the car's not for coaching.
And same thing at tryouts.
It's the same thing. Yeah, the evaluations are not.
Yeah,
for
and frankly,
evaluating.
your opinion doesn't
Yeah.
matter. So
Your opinion doesn't matter. It doesn't.
It's so right through their heart, Mike.
well, nobody cares what you think about how your kid didn't try out.
I love that, Mike. That was
Could
brilliant.
you please understand that, mom and dads?
Mike,
It
that's a
doesn't
great point.
matter what you think.
If your opinion mattered, you'd be down there, or you'd be up in the Hawkeye. Yeah, no, look, that's a great point. And
Right.
look, again, there's so much stress. Just Christy on that one point. Again,
Yeah.
My kid's gonna come. Hey, how do you think I did? I'll just be honest,
Right.
but I'm not gonna
Yeah.
be like, well, you did this wrong, you did that right, you did this wrong. Yeah, I think you did all right. That's it. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Well,
Yeah, see
Michael,
what
my kids have a little friend that will say, like, they'll be like, "Oh, how'd you do on that shift?" He'd be like, "Oh, you were terrible on that shift." Like, well, that's kind of little. That's a little too honest, isn't it?
Right.
But it's like, okay, well, I guess
better.
so. I guess I was. But the kids know. Listen, I can tell you right now, your kids know when they get off the ice, they know where they fit
know.
in the pecking order. They know. I don't care if they're 5 or if they're 18. They know, and they're like, and if you know what, if they don't know and they don't really care at all, then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where they are at. I mean, like, hey, whatever team you're on, it seems you're going to be happy because you didn't even know where you fit in anyway. So who cares?
Right. And if they don't make, like in the case of Sophia, when she got cut for that team, oh my gosh, she cried and cried. And it was hard to watch.
It hurts.
But
It hurts you.
It hurts you too. Just,
Right.
Keep telling there's something, obviously there's something better. There's something else out there. We're going to find it. We're going
Right,
to
you
find
buy
it.
another goldfish,
Where
flush
is
that
it?
one down the toilet, buy another
And,
goldfish.
and be a soft landing for your
Flush
kid.
it.
Be a soft
Flush it.
landing for your kid in those situations. Like,
Right.
don't. I guys, I've said it before. I've seen kids go home and home is hell for them. And I can't imagine getting cut from a team and going and being scared of my parents. But I've seen it. I have an experience.
Yeah.
Don't be that parent. And if you're listening to this show, you're probably not that parent. To be fair.
And I love that phrase, flush it. That is
Yeah.
beautiful. I use that all the time. Just
Yeah.
flush it.
Fresh water will come in there,
Easier said than done for sure, but yeah, you just got to do
but
that.
it can be
Right.
done.
Yeah.
And on
Yeah.
that point, and this is a great tip too, try to keep your players' emotions in check. They aren't stupid. They're not the worst player out there, even if they didn't perform that well. Again, negativity breeds stress, so they don't need that as well. And here's another thing, resist the urge to speak to the coach at tryouts. He or she doesn't have the time to get into an involved discussion with you during tryouts. with 100 other parents listening in. Not the time. Have you
So-
been approached
So
by
let me give you a rule from a coaching point. Don't, even if they're your best friend, even if it's your brother's kid, even if it's the guys you go bowling with on the off nights, don't be sitting around in the hallway before tryouts and right after tryouts talking to the other parents of the kids you already know are going to be on the team. Because what happens is it just sends the wrong message. And it might not be wrong. It's not like you don't even know what you're doing, because everyone now is watching you and every move is, oh my God, they're talking to so-and-so. I wonder if that means he's on the team, or if that, and it actually puts the parent that's talking to that coach in a bad situation too, because it almost like, oh, well, that's why you made the team, because you bowl with that guy. Like, just, I don't even know if people bowl anymore, but if you, oh, there you go. Okay, perfect. Well, you're up in the North Country, so you have to. That's part of life. But I think, but I think here, I think it's just to understand, and we do this at the national program, right, and at the state level when you're doing like 16, 17, 18s, and you've seen this, Christy, with your daughter, I'm sure, is that the coaches are asked not to wear their school garb. Don't come in with all your St. Michael's gear on when you're doing a USA hockey selection camp, because we don't want that influence even perceived. So I think the same thing for coaches that are doing evaluations, or if you're the coach that your team's doing evaluation, but you're not even like part of the evaluation process, which I think is nuts. But say you're the coach that's not allowed to pick his own team, don't sit in the stands with the other parents.
No. Yeah. Be away from that.
Just go away from, because don't even allow the perception to be there that there's some kind of.
Yeah. I was going to say, if an evaluation's done, I don't want to use the word correctly, but an ideal scenario is the coaches that have to make the selections, or the person has to make selections, is away from everybody. They're usually up in kind of like a nest watching down, or just in a gated off area. Right. And then the person running the evaluation should not be the person selecting. If you can do it. There are some organizations that's the only option they have. Right. Yeah. But hey, bring someone in to run those drills. You can go over the drills with them before, but if you're really going to be an evaluator, you have to evaluate. And there's no way you can run the practice and watch every kid. It's just not possible. I've been in both situations. It's not fun. And no, like, parents, the other thing too, Mike, I was thinking about this. I was thinking about the evaluators, like, well, what are they looking for? Your kid probably has about a minute, maybe 2 minutes, the entire evaluation. They're actually watching him or her. So, well, how do I know when that is? You don't. That's why you just give the best the whole time. That's why you have to just give your best the whole time, because you never know when they're watching. All right. Yeah, and if they're watching when you fall down, they watch when you fall down.
For the most part, these aren't professional evaluators. These are not people that look for talent. They're just moms and dads and even coaches, like guys that played hockey. Okay, great. So most of these guys, and I'm, because I've done this literally for over 35 years of sitting with evaluators. Like, if a kid's doing a backwards crossover drill in the circles and he falls down, he's getting cut. I mean, it's horrible. It's like what? Like you'll see like, well, that has nothing to do with him. That has nothing to do with his skill. Like, so like, to me, I hate me personally. I hate tryouts that have skill drills. I want to see kids play. Like, I want to
put them in a game
play.
scenario at the older age.
Can you not play?
At the older ages, yeah. Even at
every age. I mean, I don't care if you go around a cone. If you can play, you can play. Like, I want to know if you can play hockey. Like, you can look ugly. Like, I use the example all the time. When I was growing up, I started late. But when I was growing up, if I had a tryout that I had to go through through cones from 11 to 15 years old, I would have got cut from every single team I played on.
That's fair.
I'm the guy that wrecked every cone. Like, I would go around and 19 cones would get flown out of the way because I'd lose my edge.
I got a strong visual of this in my head right now.
Yeah, I'm flopping in the ice. But, you put me in a game and the kid's coming out of the corner with a bloody nose and a broken rib. So, the bottom line is, just know who you're, that's a whole part of evaluation, maybe preparing your kids. Like, if it's going to be drills, don't, and Christy, you kind of alluded to earlier, like, don't go over your skis on that. You work hard,
right?
But don't forget, it's just be fluid and have technique and understand that it's not as fast as you can go.
Right.
It's just doing it correctly and paying attention in the line for the next step. So I laugh when I see evaluators do like tryouts at 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds, and they got a line of 25 kids and they explain the drill. And then by like kid 7, he doesn't even remember what the drill was. Right. So they do it wrong. And you're like, oh, this kid's got to get cut. I'm like, well, he's 5 years old. I mean, but again, but I think just going back to the whole point of, just don't, the politicalness exists. So just do everything you can to mitigate it by not having, cross-pollinating, all the evaluators, coaches, and parents. I think there's just a good rule of thumb.
Right.
That's-
And Sharon, she's great. Sharon, a great writer. She says, for me, I clench my teeth, I wring my hands, I try to talk about other things. I never press my nose up against the glass, even when a really big goalie comes out of nowhere. So, and she said the other thing is have some wine.
That's great advice. That's really good
Wow.
advice.
Yeah.
Several hockey mom
Just relax.
friends who just have a glass of wine at the rink bar in anticipation of their
Yeah.
nerves.
Or in
Not
just
on
a
the,
big
not on the
gold
last,
cup.
not
that
on the
you can't
last night,
see.
not on the last night when they post the names
Yeah.
up on the board.
You think
That's
my
true.
kids should be on
What
team?
the hell?
Yeah. No, I think that's great advice. Maybe have a little sippy cup with you in the stands. If don't tell anybody.
Relax.
Quick stories for you guys that I remember just thinking about this. I can tell you at all different levels. I remember trying out for the minors, and I remember what they did, Mike, was they did a lot of incredibly hard flow drills for 20, 30 minutes to tire us out. Like this is what they were doing. They wanted us to be tired. Everybody had an appropriate skill. So they just tired us out. They did unbelievably hard drills, and then they put us into a game. And what I realized as I got older is they wanted to see who would show up in that game when they were dead and tired, right? And it's funny because, and I'm not bragging here, I showed up in that game. I remember I did really well. And when I look back, it wasn't because any clinics or anything. It was just a mentality of just, I'm going to do this. That's what they were looking for, right? It's a little bit of a military tactic. They don't want anything but the best of the best, right? Also in college, when I was coaching college, I remember I went to an evaluator type like recruiting event. So it was kids from all over the place, never played together. To give you guys an idea what Mike is talking about, I happen to think I'm a pretty good coach. I mean, I feel that way. I'm just being honest with you out there. And the reason I'm saying that is that I remember I was at this evaluation, and they just played games. There was a kid out there must have had 4 assists every game. And I'm thinking, well, everyone's going to want that kid, right? So he's passing. The kids are scoring like crazy. He's passing. I contact this kid. I was the only coach that contacted him, the only one. And I said, your playmaking ability is incredible, right? And he goes, nobody saw that. They just saw the goals. And he was 100% right, because every kid that scored got to college. Nobody but me called this kid. I got this kid. I was really happy about it. Right? And guess what? He became a playmaker because I understood the role that I wanted him to fill. All right. So number one, I am not telling parents to not have your kids be a playmaker. It's a very, 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 very valuable skill set. It's a very important skill set. And there are good coaches out there that will see it. So please do not think goals are the only way forward. But I'm just making the point that Mike was making is you don't know who's evaluating your kids.
Right.
All right. You don't know what they see or what they're looking for or what they want. And you can't hold that against them because if we're talking youth hockey, they're probably a volunteer. Right.
Yeah. And there's bias. It's like, oh, big kid. Oh, I want him. Oh, little
fast
kid.
kid.
Nah, no good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's just the way it is. I mean, it's sad, but true. But I mean, I think the game's changing a little bit now, right? That you're seeing like small mobile defensemen be successful, but it all depends on the error. And it depends on who that coach is that's evaluating your kid and where,
Right.
so that's why, it's all, listen, it's very scary to have like one evaluator, right? Where
I don't
maybe
know
if
how
you
they
have
do it.
3,
Yeah.
well, if you have 3 or if you have 4, if there's truly conversations about players and there's truly a system of, well, how does a kid get picked or why, like, are you going in? Is it really a tryout? Like, are you filling in 3 positions or are you filling in 15? Is it really the best 15 kids or are you taking kids? And this is really actually a question I would say for parents to ask. Are you picking the best 15 kids or are you picking by position? Like, are you picking 6D
That's a great
and
question.
9 forwards? Because my
Yeah.
kid's not a forward and he's been playing forward the whole tryout. So he's never been a forward. Now, again, you could go back to, well, you got to be able to play every position. But the fact is, a lot of organizations don't do that. So just understand where you are and ask how is the tryout, put together and how is it being evaluated? Because it's being evaluated by, I'm just picking the top 15 kids by skill.
Right.
I don't care if you're a defenseman or a forward. Then you have to really go about things a little differently, I think.
So I'll tell you, I've never said this publicly. I'll tell you the ending to that minor league story. And this talks to your point. I did really, really well. We had 2 games. I scored 5 points in 2 games. And I was very proud of myself because for me at this point in my life, everyone was saying you'll never make it to this level. Here I am. Even at the kind of tryout games, I was like, hey, I'm here, right? Not that I've made it, just I'm here. This is amazing.
Right.
Didn't make that team. All right. With 5 points in 2 games. I'm not upset about that. This is to your point, Mike. When they brought me in, they said, look, we're going to keep you on the bubble. You didn't get any fights out there in the tryout. And I'm sitting there looking at the guy again. This is right around the turn of the century where hockey's a little different at this time, parents. So like fighting is a major part of the game at this time. And I kind of looked at him and was like, well, I'll fight if I have to fight. There were a lot of guys got in fights in these tryouts. That's what they were looking for. And I didn't make the team because I didn't do that. Don't hold that against them. I'm totally at peace with that. Right. But it just goes to show you, I didn't know what they were looking for. And had I known that, I might not have made the team even if I did know that. I just did the best that I could. I'm very proud of the performance. But my point is that you didn't fight. They weren't looking for 5 points in 2 games. Right. So my point again is this. I don't hold that against them because they knew what they needed. Again, this is a professional level. This isn't youth hockey. They knew what they needed. Right. But this happens at the youth level. I might need a number 5D. Okay. And I'm looking for that player who fits in well. And sometimes that means, and parents are going to think I'm crazy, there are times a better forward will not make the team because they just need that D. Right. It's amazing when it goes into this. And here's the thing. Is it fair? Right? No. But life's not fair. Tryouts are not fair. Evaluations are not fair. None of it's fair. What you're going to do with that as a parent, that's really the question. When your kid hits the wall of that's not fair, which is going to happen so many times, right? What are you going to do? What is the lesson you're going to teach your kid there? Yeah, you're right. That's not fair. Let's scrounge our way back onto the team and do everything that we shouldn't be doing. Let me teach you that if you grovel enough, you can get what you want. That's not the right message, in my opinion. Right.
Right. But it's also not fair for organizations to continually totally do the bait and switch, right? Yes. So if you're that parent, I see the parents all the time. They check in. I'm like, are you really here? Like, what are you doing here at this tryout? You did 19 pages of emails about how this team sucks, and now you're tryouts.
Yeah.
Like, what do you do? Like, why are you here?
Right.
And usually it's the red flag of they're here because they burn the bridge at the 19 other places that are.
Well, it's them. It's them. It's not the organization at that point.
No doubt. And I think sometimes, but that's where you as a parent. And, in your kids, like sometimes, sometimes parents just don't know. There's a program I work with these guys at Power Player, and they do so the whole premise of evaluating kids through the course of a year is that you pick kids based on your body of work, not 3 days of tryouts. So we see it all the time at the youth level, especially in the spring. Like all the tryouts are in April and May. So most of us that are in the world of sport love our kids playing like baseball and lacrosse, right? So it's so sad to see a kid go from like lacrosse practice where they just practiced an hour and a half, and then they're running and they're getting dressed in the car and they're going to hockey practice and they're expected to perform at the level at the other kids that are doing nothing. Now, there's a pros and cons. Like, well, the kid's a multi-sport athlete, great, but he's exhausted. So should he be getting evaluated on the same scale as the other kids that are playing? So there's a whole, you have to understand what organization you're going to and when the time of year is. And then, and the thing that I hate the most is, just not really understanding a player's body of work. And one of the things I would look for in an organization is, well, tell me, are you looking at like this 3-day snapshot of the player with blinders on, or are you already coming? Because I know at every level I evaluate at, you come in with the perception of who the player is. Every level, doesn't matter. You know who the player is. And you base your opinion off of whether they're on the up scale or the down scale of who you thought they were. And I think, we got to be careful that at the, at those middle levels, at these levels where these kids migrate from AAA to AAA to AAA. And within the course of 2 years, have gone through 4 different programs. You just need to navigate those waters and try to pick kids that you can make better and perform, or just be mercenaries. Listen, I have no problem with it. Pick the best 15 kids and go out and beat everyone. But just make sure you tell people that. Like, I'm picking the best 15 kids.
Yeah, that's a good point, Mike. Just being transparent about what you're looking for. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No, but most parents know it. And I think some of us go into it anyway. Like, they know you're not going to make the team.
Yeah.
Like, this team's already picked. Well, then why are you going there? Well, because I want my kid to be, I want him to see what that looks like to be at that level. Why? Because then because I think the reverse of that, Lee, is you're just teaching them maybe life isn't fair, but life's not fair because of their inability to play.
I don't I don't have an issue with a kid going to a tryout if they know they're not going to make a team for some experience, if it makes sense. Like if it's the next level up and you just want to know what it feels like and the speed.
Yeah.
Like I've done that. And I've had no problems with that. And it was helpful, but I also had kind of the right mentality going into it of like, hey, I want to see where I rank. You know what I mean? And that can be tough though, but
No,
again,
I agree. I agree with you,
yeah.
but don't go in knowing you're not going to make the team and say, well, we're just going to try out anyway, just to see where I fit in. Like, I don't know. I just think and to convince your kid, well, maybe you probably can break through.
Right.
Well, you can't. That team's picked already. So don't, just be aware. Just be aware.
Yeah. I think that's an important point. You know, one thing I want to do before we end this, guys, is talk about maybe some things that can be changed. You know, Mike, you made this great example earlier. I would love it if every kid had the same color helmet, same color jersey, same color socks, and just had a number. I think that's brilliant. Anything to take it away from, like you said, the ability to stand out from jersey. And, you know, it's funny. I can't believe I'm saying this. My wife is making me watch this show that I hate called Love is Blind. I'm watching it with her because I want to spend time with her, which is, so I love that. But the whole premise of the show is these people date, but they never get to see each other. So they can only talk to each other through a wall. And they all say it's amazing what happens when you take out the visual. It's amazing what happens when you don't have all these preconceived notions about a person's race or how they look and all this stuff. And it just making me think about that, because it's like, yeah, what would you do if if you really didn't know any of the kids and you had to pick the team again? You know what I mean? I think that's a great point. And then the character would have to stand out on its own at that point to see things. Again, it's not realistic for every organization, but I thought that was a good suggestion.
No, I make a concerted effort. I mean, any national camp I do or any regional camp that I do, I make it I'm very conscious about the fact that I don't want the player lists given to me prior to tryouts. Like, I don't want, here's the player with the number, and I don't even want the kids' numbers.
Right.
I'd write
no,
down
I mean, on the ice
like.
is what I meant. Just
that's what I mean. I just want to see the kids. I find the kids. Like, I don't even need the list of blue 13, white 6. Like, I just look. I don't care what town they're from, what organization they played for last year, who their coach was, because then I don't want to know the guy. Like, I never sit next to people because I don't want their influence. Because I'm like, well, I don't care what you think. It doesn't matter to me, because you're giving me your influence of who you think a player is.
Right.
I just want to see the player now. And I struggle with this every day. Like, are we picking? Because if we're not picking a kid for the 1 hour that we're getting to look at them, which is extremely difficult.
Right.
Then if we are taking in all these other things, then that should be out there. Then I want to know, where'd you play?
Right.
Who'd you play with?
Right.
What's your, how many majors did you take last year? All that kind of stuff, which I think should be all. I mean, personally, if you're picking a real true elite team, that should all be on the table. I should know all that information.
My other piece of advice, and I'm kind of speaking to my level now in terms of just the level my kids at, which is the youth level. Put a coach on the ice that's going to make it fun for those kids at the eval. It does not have to be that serious. Like, if I have to see move, like, what are you doing? Like, these kids should be smiling after the eval, right? Because that's how you bring out the best in an 8-year-old or 9-year-old, right? Why put the pressure on them to that point at that level? The kids that are going to do it are going to do it. That's what you kind of want to see. So please put a coach out there that's going to make it fun for them. And actually, I don't think that's just limited to the young kids. When I was trying out, I remember trying out as an older kid, like, coach made it fun. The guy out there made it fun. Like, I know you guys are nervous. I know you're stressed. I know you want to make this team. Let's just have fun and play as hard as we can. That's what you want to create. I think, Mike, am I incorrect in this? Like, that's what you want. Unless I have a hard time thinking of a scenario where you should have a drill instructor out there.
So I have such a different outlook on this. I agree with you. It needs to be fun, but then you need to, but that's how you come into it. Like, if anybody that listens to this wants really some sage advice on how to run a program, call me, please, because I want to give you. I'll talk for 5 hours. I watch these organizations that have tryouts that are youth programs, like they're a town program. They have 2 teams. They have a 10U team. They have an A team and a B team. And my philosophy is really I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of kids. Really, when you have that tryout, how many new kids are coming into the program? Really? Like, at your program, Lee, how many new kids come out of nowhere? 5, 6? Like, the people like, oh my God, where's
let you
this
know in
kid
a few
from?
weeks.
Right. But it's very, very rare that it's a lot.
Right.
At the AAA,
it's not a lot.
at the compilers, at the big, huge programs, yes, it floods the market, right? But in your little market, that most of us are in, that most of the youth hockey world is
it's
in.
most of the same kids. Yeah.
It's mostly the same kids. So what the hell is the difference between me saying what team I'm going to put your kid on without having any evaluation and tryout, just based off of the kid? You
Right.
join my program. You join my world, our family. You hear this all the time. I love my hockey family. And on Facebook, people want to kill each other on April 16th because their kid got cut from the family they love, right? The team sucks. So I see this all the time. But that's it. To me, that's anxiety. So I'm like, why aren't you just, because my feeling is this: the mom or dad that gets upset because I placed Michael on the B team or over the A team because of my random thoughts of where they fit in is just as mad as if they went through this whole 3-week tryout process at $180 and got put on the B team anyway. So I'd rather, as a parent, say, okay, well, why did my kid get put on that team?
Right.
And we could talk about this, a whole nother episode, but for hockey directors and program administrators and coaches, I want to know if you really are this good and you're such a great evaluator, then tell me why my kid didn't make the team and tell me why my kid did make the team and give me some real honest feedback for what I'm investing in, on why I'm here. Like, why am I here? And what can I do to get better? Because the whole thing, you got to work harder, Lee. Okay. I think I work pretty hard. Well, you just got to work harder.
Thank you for that very sage advice. Please work harder. You sound like a fan at a game. Shoot the puck.
You got to shoot the puck. You got to block. You got to block that shot. Hey,
Right.
That shot's 120 miles per hour. I don't care. You got to get in front of it.
Right.
As the guy
actually,
stuffing his face
you
in
do the
puck.
kid a favor if you're an evaluator. If the kid's upset, if you tell them good feedback, you do them a favor. You give them a goal for the year.
No doubt about it. I think, and that's why, like, when I advise small programs, like, I always fall, like, me personally, major minor is like the most brilliant way to have youth hockey programs. And what I mean by major minor, if you're not in this world, is it goes by year of birth. So if you're a squirt, if you're a 10U, second year 10U, you're in a pool of just second year 10Us.
Right.
If you're a first year 10U, you're in a pool of first year 10Us. It helps in program retention.
It's like varsity and JV
growth.
in a lot of ways.
Well, it's not even J. It's you could have two varsities.
Right.
It's varsity and varsity.
You're right. You're right.
It's like the best kids in that age group. And what happens is the kids move up together, because in the world of youth hockey, when you do A-B and you do two teams and within age groups, and statistics will tell you that most of the time, like that's the better. So think about this: the better kids in the younger age group make the A team.
Right.
But then the worst kids get worse. They don't get better. So they now have to play with you, because now there's a wall. You're stuck. You can't go to the next level. You're stuck in the top of that age group. Right. So now the shitty kids, the kids that aren't that good, come in. Right.
Right.
And then everybody's like, well, I don't want to play with those kids. They stink. I just play with the really good kids. So what do? They leave. They leave your organization to go to another. So it's a vicious cycle. So there's so many better ways we can fix this and make it where real tryouts and evaluations of kids really become a place where not only can the kid get evaluated, they can get all the attributes of working hard, persevering, being a great person, showing their true colors. But it also helps because we're building better communities, better family relationships, better team structures. And if you're really interested in making your program strong and successful and having great retention because of all the work you're putting in to keep kids in your organization, it statistically and unequivocally allows you to have kids stay in your program for longer periods of time, which is a whole better way on a return on your investment if you're working in a youth hockey world. I'm done.
I want to close this episode out with two questions. It's going a little over time, and I appreciate the audience that's still listening. Hopefully we're providing a lot of value, or at least conversation. So I have one question from Mike. I have one question for Christy. Mike, I'm going to start with you. Why are evaluations at the end of the season now and not the start of the next season?
Do I have a couple $100 bills here? Because money. It's because you can't, because people will say, well, I can't put I actually have a weird feeling about this. Like, some people say, well, if they had it in September, like they used to have it, it gives my kid all year to work hard and get better to make the top team. Well, I guess you could say that, but all the kids are in the same boat. They're all in the same, like, so if they all did that, wouldn't they all
relative.
get better and make the team, make the team and commit? And I think what it also does, in my opinion, this is a money grab, and not unjustly. People have to keep their rinks open. You make the team in April, You start April workouts. You have summer programs with your kids. You do that now because that's where this is where we all gone back bonkers. Is that now we're doing the summer select team and the conditioning camp and the and I think it would be the other way around if you had tryouts in September when kids were naturally going to the hockey season. It would back everyone up. And you would think it actually, Lee, right? It would be easier with technology now. Like back in the day, you actually imagine 10 years ago having to put a schedule together in September for your team for the year. It'd be hard.
Right.
Because
you wouldn't know.
You hardly had email. Like now you just send out a blast and say, hey, I have a 10U team looking for games. Here are the dates. And in 2 seconds, you have games scheduled. So to me, you think it'd be easier to pick a team in September.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I was just curious about it because I don't remember it.
I think it really came about. I mean, you got to remember, USA Hockey ceases business after the national championship.
Yeah.
So after the nationals are over in March here, then USA Hockey is done. So but rinks and organizations want to retain their kids, and I think they feel like if they don't get their kids right at the end of the season, then somebody's recruiting them for 6 months.
Well, I think two things. I don't have a preference on this. I was just thinking 2 things. One is that there is a point to seeing their skill level at the end of a season just to see where they've gotten to. And there's also the idea of, from a political standpoint, man, if you don't hold your tryouts in April and you do it in September, the kids are going to pick another team because they're going to make another team. So that's the vicious cycle of it too. I just found that weird because, like I said, we're going to have evaluations here in a couple of weeks. And I'm like, I don't know if my kid's going to play hockey this summer. We talk about that. He might play a couple like summer leagues, not spring league, but he might be off the ice for a while here. And it's like, he's going to come back and he might not be where he left off. I don't put that much onus on that because he's 8. I want him to play multiple sports. It's a little different when you're 15. I'll give that. All right. Christy, my question for you. You're the only one who can answer this. You've been through it with 2 kids, full hockey careers in youth hockey. Is there anything you would have done differently? Anything you would have changed? Anything you think you did really well that you can take away?
Right. It's really hard, especially when your kid gets cut from a team. You feel so angry and so upset, and you think, how's my kid going to recover from this? You really kind of get caught up in it. Now looking back, really, it was a blessing. It really was a blessing that she got cut, and I didn't see it at the time. Obviously now, hindsight's 2020, right? And it's so true. As you look back and I'm thinking, okay, let's say she made that AAA team at that young age, and she probably would have sat a lot. She wouldn't have a lot of game experience because the other girls were so advanced. She wouldn't have that opportunity to be creative like she did on the house team, which got created because a bunch of girls got cut. So we all came together and created this team. And from there, she met girls who were trying out for a high school team. So all of a sudden, she wanted to go out, try out for a high school team. I don't think she would have tried out for a high school because that AAA team didn't like high school hockey play. They didn't let their girls. You couldn't play on a high school team because they were so elite. If you're on our team, you do not play high school hockey. Thank God she played high school hockey. That was the best experience of her life. They won a state championship. They won sectionals every year. And those are the best memories she's ever had. And she got creative and, talented enough to play college hockey. So I guess my life lesson for parents is don't stress about it, especially if they get cut from a team. It could be the best thing that ever happened. You may not see it at the moment, and it hurts like hell. But trust me, when that door closes, there could be a better one that's about to open for your kid. It's a very trying time. Tryouts are trying for the kid and for the parent. Don't get in their head so much. Resist that temptation, and just be supportive. Be a good parent. Yeah,
and it's a great note to end it on. And it's kind of like, I think we bookended it actually with that note. It's all out of love. All of it's out of love for your kids, hopefully.
Right.
And at the end of the day, they just got to know that. You know what I mean? So, hey, this was a lengthy episode. For those of you listening, we really appreciate you staying to the end. It's one of those topics. It kind of deserves a lot of time. We could probably keep going, but we all have regular lives that we have to live. So, again, if you have not done so already, please head over to whenhockeystops.com and pick up the new book that Christy and I wrote. You have early access options now before its full release on March 29th. Also, if you love this show, which you probably do if you listen to this entire episode, make sure to like and subscribe. Maybe give us a ranking on Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen. It really helps us out a lot as we continue to grow. You are a wonderful audience. We love hearing from you and the feedback that we get. It means a ton to us. It affirms us being here every week. But that is going to do it for this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. For my really great friends, Mike Benelli and Christy Casciano Burns, I'm Lee Elias. We'll see you on the next episode. And have a great week and good luck with your evaluations. Take care. We hope you enjoyed this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Make sure to like and subscribe right now if you found value wherever you're listening, whether it's a podcast network, a social media network, or our website, ourkidsplayhockey.com. Also, make sure to check out our children's book, When Hockey Stops, at whenhockeystops.com. It's a book that helps children deal with adversity in the game and in life. We're very proud of it. But thanks so much for listening to this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey, and we'll see you on the next episode.